All right, I think this is a good time to start, just to start on time. We have 3 different speakers today. They'll introduce themselves and why they support Prop 205. If you could just stay up there with them.
Yeah, you have to stay up there.
While this happens, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
Let's get going.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gina Bourbon. I'm the medical director of the Giving Tree Wellness Centers of Phoenix and Mesa. I originally came to the Valley after medical school to do my residency in ER. Ended up loving the area and staying. I met my husband here. I have 3 kids in elementary school here, so I have roots, and now Phoenix is my home. After about 10 years of working as an attending in the ER, the opportunity came up to become the medical director of the Giving Tree Wellness Centers, and I took it. As the medical director, I really enjoyed the change of pace and being able to sit down with patients without the constraints of time to talk about their problems and support them in their goals of improved health. Through these conversations, I started to more and more see patients reporting that they were seeing benefit from decreasing use of pharmaceuticals. In an effort to further help these patients, I pursued and obtained board certification in addiction medicine, which has given me tools to better help these patients. So that's my passion in this industry. As an ER doc prescribing opiates daily, I felt like I was part of the problem. Working in the dispensary gave me the opportunity to be part of the solution. But that's about me and medical marijuana, and we're here to talk about the adult use of cannabis. When the idea to regulate marijuana for adult use came up a couple of years ago, I had to really think about it. When a big change like this comes around, the natural instinct, I think, is to resist it and protect the status quo. Then to reflect, how is this going to affect my children, my family, and my community? I can't say I was an immediate yes in supporting this initiative. I have 3 young children, so I have concerns about them having increased access. I live in a community I've seen ravaged by alcohol and opiates, so I get why put another addictive substance out there, that sentiment. But as I thought it out, I realized this. Marijuana was more accessible than alcohol when I was a teenager. It is true, the drug dealers don't card. I can't imagine it's any different now. My kids will have access to marijuana, whether this initiative passes or not. That's where parenting and talking to kids comes in. That's not going to change. And frankly, I'm more worried about my kids getting access to legally prescribed opiates and amphetamines that are readily available in medicine cabinets across the state. I also reflected on my time in the ER and the merry-go-round of patients suffering from alcohol or opiate dependence and addiction. It was seemingly endless. But it's odd because marijuana is statistically the most commonly used illicit drug, yet I myself never saw a patient with a marijuana-related complaint. I'm not saying they aren't out there. My experience is 3 years of residency at Maricopa County Medical Center and 10 years of experience as an attending at St. Joe's. So marijuana ravaging our community like alcohol and opiates do, regulated or not, that's not going to happen whether this initiative passes or not, and whether marijuana is regulated or not, if it hasn't happened already. We aren't introducing a new drug into our communities. It's already here. And frankly, if I could wave my, my magic wand and switch every patient using alcohol or opiates to marijuana, I would do it in a heartbeat. Marijuana has no end organ damage, addiction incidents on par with caffeine, and no overdose deaths reported ever. It might just be harm reduction to have marijuana as an option to alcohol and opiates, but if it's your loved one being harmed by alcohol and opiates, that's significant. But clearly, I don't just not mind this initiative. I actively support it, which is why I'm standing here today. The reasons I actively support it are, ironically, highlighted by the very large donor who has just spent $500,000 to fight it, INSYS. This company stands only to gain from marijuana remaining unregulated and underground. The reasons they don't support it are the very reasons that we should. This is a company whose best interests are in keeping people hooked on opiates, such as fentanyl, which they produce. Fentanyl, if you've been following the news recently, is littering our nation's streets with the dead. But INSYS is rightfully afraid of marijuana. 3 studies have now shown that opiate use and opiate deaths decrease in states with marijuana regulation. This is a savings of literally thousands of lives a year and people not using their deadly opiates products and instead choosing a safer alternative. This is a company whose best interests are not in allowing people to buy or grow this plant, but who are, and I'm not joking here, themselves actively manufacturing synthetic cannabinoids to bring to market. Supporting this company is supporting cannabis prohibition, unless you get your cannabinoids from INSYS. Let's face it, the marijuana industry exists and it's always existed. Let's be honest with ourselves and benefit from its regulation. Let's take the jobs from the cartels and give them to Arizonans. The Giving Tree alone supports over 50 employees, and these are employees with 401ks and health insurance, and this doesn't even begin to include all the small businesses we support with our patronage. Let's take the millions of dollars in taxes that this program will generate and give them to our struggling schools. We can make Arizona the greatest in the nation in education instead of flailing at the bottom. Finally, let's give the respect due to the adults of this state to be able to make this decision for themselves. How can we in good conscience allow pharmaceutical companies such as Incest to say that synthetic cannabinoids are somehow okay, but using a cannabinoid directly from the plant is criminal activity? That is just absurd. Marijuana prohibition has never made sense. Marijuana prohibition has never worked. It has just made criminals of ordinary Americans. This is our opportunity to begin to right the wrongs of the past. Vote yes on Prop 205. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you all for coming today. My name is Laura Bianchi. I am an attorney and partner with Rose Law Group, and I'm a business corporate transactions attorney, but since 2010, my focus area has been cannabis law. One of the most exciting things I've seen about the cannabis industry in the past few years is the amount of women propelling the legal industry forward. Right now, as you can see, 36% of the executive positions in the legal cannabis industry are held by women, as opposed to 22% in other traditional industries. This industry has given women incredible opportunities to not only succeed on an executive level, but surpass and avoid that glass ceiling that's plagued so many of us in other industries. Why do I support Proposition 205? There's a number of reasons, but just to give you a few, Proposition 205, if passed, will actually, not only is it a well-structured, well-thought-out initiative, it will boost the economy in Arizona, it will bring jobs, it will bring opportunities, and it will help businesses flourish, not only for women, but everyone in Arizona. It will bring over $50 million to our education system on an annual basis. Keep in mind, we are 47th in the nation. It's pitiful. If we want to actually educate and propel our kids into the future with a positive education, these are funds that we desperately need. It will remove over $400 million annually from the black market. That means we're helping and aiding in the fight against the cartels, which are devastating so many Arizona citizens as well as those in Mexico. It will bring, again, annually, over $100 million to state and local municipalities. Again, that goes to our fire, first responders, police officers. These are funds that are desperately needed and don't currently exist. It will allow the state of Arizona to take funds away from the criminalization of marijuana possession. We won't be wasting money on arresting, convicting, and incarcerating individuals simply for possessing a plant. It will allow us to take that revenue and allocate it to much more important resources. Probably as a business attorney, my most prized part of this initiative is it will actually create a separate department which will be much more well-funded, well-educated, and well-equipped to manage not only the medical but adult use components of this industry in Arizona. As a business attorney, not only do I help with the legal side of this, but I help with compliance, best business practices, employment issues, legal, finance, investing, so many different sides that require really clear rules and requirements in any industry, but even more so in an emerging industry that has so many gray areas as it is. Having a department that is solely dedicated to providing accountability, actually developing rules that make sense from a business and community perspective, and enforcing those rules and requirements is a benefit to anyone who's in this industry, whether it's specifically in a dispensary or a cannabis and ancillary business. It provides the rules and regulations and the structure that we desperately need. In addition, it gives people access to a plant that, as we've discussed, does not have the issues and the death toll that the opiate industry has. You see who's contributing to the No campaign. They have gone through Arizona for the past year and said how cannabis is horrible for you. It's going to kill our kids. It's going to turn them into drug users. Yet they just accepted $500,000 from a pharmaceutical company that produces opioids, which kills more kids in Arizona than marijuana has ever. And I don't think we actually have any record deaths from marijuana. It severely undercuts their story. Apparently it's horrible and deathly if you want to consume cannabis from a plant perspective, but if you take a synthetic form from a pharmaceutical company that's attached to a check, that's fine. I urge you, read the initiative. Take a look at Proposition 205. I promise you, you will be surprised that the fear-mongering, the lies, the nonsense that's out there is not supported by the actual language of the proposition. Make a decision for yourself. Don't read what's on Facebook and social media. This issue does not fit on a bumper sticker. Take a look at Proposition 205, and I think you'll come to the same conclusion that I am, that it's good for Arizona, it's good for women, but it's good for the community as a whole. Thank you.
Wow, those ladies really took care of most of it. But I come from the science side. I've been in the legal cannabis business since 2010 in Denver.
We don't have your name.
Sorry. That's a good point. My name is Jennifer Murray, and I own Carbon Blue Consulting, which is a science consulting firm that helps with third-party labs, in-house analytics, auditing. And I come from Colorado and started a laboratory in 2010. So if anybody has lived a legal landscape, it is myself. And I'll tell you what, Colorado is thriving. I believe when the vote went down to end recreation or to end prohibition in Colorado was November of 2012. Our unemployment rate was at 7.7. It is currently about 4.3. We also gained $1 billion in sales in 2015. And coming from the science perspective, this plant is unlike any other. It has over 500 constituents. About 483 of those are unique to the cannabis plant, and we are just scratching the surface. So to not be part of ending prohibition is not supporting medical studies that absolutely need to be done with this plant. And since the DEA decided not to deschedule, but they allowed us supposedly to apply for clinical trials and such, so that's good. But I also want to make sure that that you voters are aware that cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, which says that it has no medicinal benefits. Yet the United States government has a patent on this plant. I encourage you to look it up and familiarize yourself with it. So if anybody's lying to you about this plant, it is our own true government who supports pharma big time. And as both of the ladies have said, that it's pharma that is pushing against this because they know that cannabis has a million medicinal benefits, and just give us a chance to prove that through science. Voting for 205 is not bringing cannabis here. Cannabis is already everywhere. All it is calling for is to regulate it, to keep it out of the hands of children. That is the most important point. We also have a ton of regulation around packaging, and you will get tested product if you vote yes on 205. Thank you.
And just hold for a couple more pictures here.
I have a question.
Gina.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know who wants to answer that. Maricopa County traditionally has not really welcomed the marijuana industry here, especially the county attorney, Bill Montgomery. I was with him yesterday, and he does not really endorse 205. You have an uphill battle with him. Somebody
Laura, do you want to
take the podium?
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Sure.
Take it, our attorney representing us.
I have the utmost respect for Attorney Bill Montgomery. However, unfortunately, he's incorrect. If you go, I mean, you can look through his Facebook site and you can see the different things that he's asserting against Proposition 205, and they're simply not accurate. He said this is going to affect employers. You're suddenly going to have to keep people on staff who are high, who are somehow impaired. It's nonsense. If you look at the language of Proposition 205, employers are still absolutely able to regulate in their workplace. You can prohibit people from consuming, from possessing, certainly from being impaired. It does not take away employers' rights. He said, you know, it will there's nothing in there that will stop basically DUIs for marijuana impairment. Again, absolutely wrong. If you look at the language of Proposition 205, it clearly states there is nothing in the proposition that prohibits the state or local municipalities from preventing you from driving or operating any sort of machinery, whether it's a car, a boat, a tractor, while you're impaired. So, you know, he's clearly against it. Again, I think just his accepting of this last donation really undermines a lot of his arguments. If marijuana is so bad, then why would you accept something from a company that, again, produces opiates and has in the works synthetic cannabis product? It just doesn't add up, and it doesn't make sense. And I support everyone's opinion, but I think that, you know, he's selling sort of a bill of goods. And my answer is always read the language, read the proposition, and you'll see what's actually in it and what's actually not. And I think that makes clear why his opinion is wrong in this case.
You face a bigger
Sure.
battle statewide. I mean, this is traditionally a Republican state, and they've been traditionally against any kind of marijuana. You got the medical marijuana
We
approved,
did.
but for recreational use, that might be a tougher battle. How do you answer that?
You know, again, I think it's impressive, even the medical program. I mean, keep in mind that we passed that program in an off-election year. There was no presidential election. It was not, you know, not something where you would have historically had a huge amount of voters, and we still passed the medical program, and it's been successful. And you know, I speak with a lot of people in my industry. I speak with every different realm. You have industry people, you have business, I have investors, I have people from all across the United States and around the world who are interested in this industry. And I think you'd actually be surprised how open to it most people are, that they see it as a legitimate business in the same way as any other business, and they're not opposed to it. Certainly, do we have an uphill battle? I think because you have some fear-mongering going on and some nonsense out there. However, you know, I also think we have a really great industry that's done a wonderful job, including MPP, of educating people, of providing them with the actual accurate information. And I really think that once they understand what's actually in Proposition 205 and what it does for Arizona as a whole, especially from an allocation of funds perspective, I think you'd be surprised as to how many people are in favor of it.
It seems odd that you're favoring the taxes to go to education.
Sure.
Why is that?
Why is that odd?
I mean, you're using a recreational use of the drug
Sure.
to finance education.
Well, first of all, in this state, being that we're 47th in the nation,
Yeah.
we certainly need funding from somewhere. We've been, again, they've been very slow to approve any sort of additional taxes. Our teachers are underpaid. Our kids are simply not being educated. We're producing just a generation that doesn't know how to read. And so, you know, to me, this is no different than any other legal industry. The alcohol industry is not for children. It doesn't mean it should be prohibited. And certainly if they said, you know, woke up tomorrow and said, we're going to change the regulations so there's a tax on alcohol that goes to the education system, I'd have no problem with that. Doesn't mean I want kids consuming alcohol, but I'm happy to take the funds from it because it's going for an adult use industry. I don't think one has anything to do with the other. I am not purporting that we have kids consuming in any way, shape, or form, but I am happy to take the tax revenue from it.
Can I make a comment really quick on the...
Let me get your name again.
Laura Bianchi.
Spell that for me.
Laura, last name is B as in boy, Ianchi.
And you're an attorney?
I'm an attorney. I'm a partner at Rose Law Group and a cannabis attorney.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to just make a little comment about your concern about the uphill battle in the state. I had a conversation with somebody at one point, and I said the initiative in 2010 passed by just a very thin margin, 4,000 votes or something. But the latest polls show that Arizonans overwhelmingly support the medical program. And so the gentleman I was speaking to, I said, in 2010, did you support the medical program? And he said, no. And I said, do you support it now? And he said, yes. And I said, I'd like for you to entertain the idea that you were wrong then and that you're wrong now. Because he didn't support recreational. Think about the status quo. Think about that resistance to the status quo. Let's, as Laura said, read the initiative. Look at the language. Don't go with your gut to resist the status quo, but let's see about, we were wrong before, let's not be wrong again.